I have no idea where they got it, but it's illegal, and you're not supposed to have it, and it's not supposed to be leaked. And it's certainly not an embarrassing tax return at all, but it's an illegal thing. They've been doing it. They've done it before. And I think it's a disgrace.
After the release last night of President Trump's 2005 tax returns, does that, in your mind, rebut some of the claims, including Secretary Clinton, that he paid no taxes?
The Trump campaign said these numbers are accurate. It's 2 pages of 1 year. The real nub of this is what happened over 10 years. There might have been a year that he was good, but much more importantly, where's he getting all this money from? The key question here is, are there Russian sources? He's president. To me, it is selfish not to make public all your tax returns. Every other president, Democrat and Republican, has done.
Well, President Trump and the minority leader in the Senate talking about the release of these 2005 tax returns. A tweet this morning from the president: does anybody really believe that a reporter who nobody ever heard of went to his mailbox and found my tax returns? NBC News. Fake news. The tax rate comparisons, put this up earlier in the day, but the average income average there, 22.5%. There you see Donald Trump in 2005, President Obama, Mitt Romney, and Bernie Sanders in those various years. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, editor-in-chief of the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio. Michael Needham is chief executive officer at Heritage Action for America, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Mara, what about this?
Well, this was a leak that was pretty good for Donald Trump. There was nothing in these tax returns that suggested he was a tax cheat or avoided taxes. He might have taken a big write-off. So I don't think this was a bad thing for him. And as you just showed, he paid a pretty healthy percentage of taxes compared to other people. Where David K. Johnston, who happened to have won a Pulitzer Prize for covering this kind of stuff, got it, we don't know. But I don't think that Donald Trump was that upset about this leak compared to other ones.
Steve.
No, I agree. And the answer, I mean, the question you asked Chuck Schumer, does this contradict the claims from Hillary Clinton? The answer to that is short. And it's no, of course it does. But he has to make up, you know, all sorts of additional charges. I mean, it is ironic to me.
There's only so much time for an interview.
No, I mean, but you asked the question.
No, I know, but
he could have given the answer.
All these people are
it
tweeting, like, why didn't you get this?
No, of course. No, it was the right question to ask. He just didn't answer it honestly. And then he went on to speculate. I mean, this was so ironic to me. This guy who spends a lot of his time criticizing Donald Trump for making things up or speculating irresponsibly, and a lot of that criticism, I think, is valid. Here you have Chuck Schumer saying, well, in the tax returns, it could indicate that he has money from the Russians, maybe from Saudi Arabia, maybe that's why he didn't include them on the list. This is just rank speculation of the kind that we got used to from Harry Reid. It's irresponsible. He shouldn't be engaging in it. If you want to make an argument that Donald Trump should release his tax returns, I would agree with that argument. I think he ought to. But don't go on and do the kind of thing that you spend much of your day criticizing Donald Trump for doing.
To that point, I thought that exchange about Saudi Arabia was very strange. I mean, Michael, the travel ban, you know, he brings up Saudi Arabia, and maybe he chose not to put Saudi Arabia on the list because he has hotels there. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's just baseless speculation. It was based on legislation that passed that Barack Obama signed, how those countries were chosen. But this whole story is also part of the reason the American people are so sick of Washington, D.C. and the way it's covered. I mean, look, we had an election. Hillary Clinton tried to make a big deal out of this, and the American people decided that they didn't care. And now this morning, ABC News spends 10 minutes on their morning show going through the big story of what was in Donald Trump's tax return when there's really no news. There's some good news from Donald Trump. It's not huge good news. It's not big bad news. Let's talk about the real issues.
Charles?
Well, it's good news because it's the first time the issue has come up. We've gotten a look at a real return, and it was not only a clean one, but a favorable one. In fact, I mean, it would feed speculation that perhaps it originated with Trump. I have no idea. But if it did, it would be a good idea on their part to have done it. Look, I think the Schumer response was an example of this sort of innuendo festival that we are now experiencing. The Saudi stuff was simply outrageous, and he kept it off the list because he has hotels there. Come on, everybody knows who was on the list and why. And it's just a way to throw the kitchen sink at Trump. Look, there's a lot of stuff on Trump, but this is not part of it. And the more you try to desperately throw everything at him, the more you discredit stuff that can actually be a valid criticism.
Okay, let's turn to the wiretapping claims. This is the House Intelligence Committee Chairman and Ranking Member, and also Senator Graham and the President.
President Obama doesn't do wiretapping, just like President Trump can't do wiretapping. So the whole premise of the statement was wrong.
You can't level an accusation of that type without either retracting it or explaining just why it was done.
Now I want to know, was there any surveillance at all, with a warrant or without a warrant? The longer it takes to answer that question, the more suspicious I get.
But wiretap covers a lot of different things. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks.
That is President Trump in the interview with Tucker Carlson that airs tonight. What the House Intel Chair and Ranking Member said is that we haven't found anything that backs that up as of today.
Yep, as of today, and we'll be getting some more information as FBI Director Comey briefs various members of Congress. You know, Donald Trump said that President Obama wiretapped him. He didn't say that President Obama put on overalls and came with a little bag of tools. What he clearly was saying was that President Obama ordered him to be wiretapped either with or without a FISA warrant, and that's what we're going to find out about.
Steve.
Yeah, well, very clearly what President Trump accused President Obama of was incorrect, was false. And I think we knew that at the time. It was certainly clear, I think, to White House officials pretty early that President Trump was engaging in the kind of rank speculation that Chuck Schumer was engaging in your interview. Having said that, I think there's a lot more to learn about what the Obama administration was up to with respect to its targeting, if there was targeting, of the Trump administration, the Trump transition, or the Trump campaign. Did the Obama administration ease rules that would have made it easier to disseminate incidental collection that could have led to the unmasking of somebody like Mike Flynn? There's New York Times reporting, the March 1st article, that suggests that they might have done just that. There's more here, but it's important if you're the President of the United States and the leader of the free world to say things that are accurate.
Yeah, and when I ask a question to the Speaker of the House about reports, and you know he gives an answer that is kind of strange, and we follow up on it, it's interesting to be mentioned as one of the places that he saw reports. Some asking about reports. So, Michael, the bottom line is, where does this go? You know, what doesn't get talked about is the possible investigations into Paul Manafort and the former campaign manager. We knew that they were looking at him and connections to Russia and possibly money situation.
Yeah, I think those questions will be asked, and we need to wait and we need to get the answers and not rush to a judgment. At the same time, I think, and this was something else that Chairman Nunes and Adam Schiff brought up today, if in fact there are people in our intelligence community who leaked information about the National Security Advisor and his conversations with the Russian ambassador, and they were doing that just because they didn't like the new boss, or just because they wanted that information out there, that's also concerning. And so I think we need to take a pause on this. We need to wait till the 20th, the 28th, when there's open hearings. We need these investigations to end and realize there's a whole lot of baseless speculation. There's a whole lot of actual very concerning accusations being put out, and let's see where they go.
Okay, this is a Fox News alert. We have, let's see, 5 hours before the travel ban. The next one is to go into effect, and a federal judge in Hawaii has now ruled a temporary restraining order preventing this travel ban, the second one, the adjusted one, from going into effect, citing the merits of the Establishment Clause claim. The plaintiffs have met their burden establishing a strong likelihood of success, saying that they are going to put this on pause. Remember, these are the 6 countries we talked about in that interview with the minority leader. He wanted 7, it seemed, Saudi Arabia, but there are 6. And a second bite at the apple here to try to redo it by the administration after challenges in courts the first time. Charles, what does this mean, and what do you think happens?
This has become a sideshow. This is not going to affect anything. Had we had the first ban, it wouldn't have had any effect anyway. It's a temporary one. It suspends the immigration from these countries. The reason was supposed to be because there are hordes of them waiting to come in, and while we're tightening up the vetting, we have to block them. Everybody understands that was a farce because the order was blocked, so we've had, what, a month of this? The hordes have not come in. Throats have not been slit all over America. This is unnecessary. You never had to have the ban in the first place. The issue here is the vetting. Why not tighten the vetting with or without a ban, and do it. That's supposed to be the heart of the issue. So I was sure there was going to be some kind of intervention. There is. This is going to put it on hold. I think that this issue is going to fade away because it has no impact. It was a response to a campaign, no promise, and will have no impact in the long run.
Mark.
But you know what's interesting about that order is they talked about the Establishment Clause. That's about whether this is a Muslim ban or not. What I understand is the administration is pretty confident that it's fixed the due process problems with the first Muslim ban, and the outstanding issue that the courts
Although they didn't call it a Muslim ban back then
I'm
either.
sorry, they didn't call it a Muslim ban, but I mean they fixed. There were several problems with it, but they think they fixed the due process problems. But it's the question of whether it is a religious test. That's what the courts are going to still adjudicate.
But it was interesting to hear the member of the Saudi royal family yesterday saying, listen, we are confident that it is not a Muslim ban, number one. Number two, Saudi Arabia is very aggressive in its vetting who comes in its country, and we understand that. Steve.
Yeah, it's a pretty good spin. It's exactly the kind of spin that you'd expect from a senior Saudi official whose country is not on the list. Look, I think we're likely to see this go back and forth. I mean, I think this is likely to end up playing out in the courts as much as and in the populace as much as it is anywhere. Yeah, I think this fight is far from over.
Michael, you agree?
Yeah, no, I think it keeps going, and it's important for it to go on. The President of the United States, both through the Constitution, has the right to conduct our foreign affairs. Statutorily, the Congress has given him the right to set these policies. To have these judges coming in and making these rules is absolutely not the role of the judiciary. The person who has the information, the person who has the power, both by the Constitution and statute, to make this is the President of the United States. The judges need to stay out of it.
You know what's so striking about, just back to that Chuck Schumer back and forth on Saudi Arabia, was the stark difference between the Chuck Schumer we saw after the first travel ban, who was very emotional about not letting people into the country, and the Chuck Schumer we saw tonight who said, you know what, Saudi should be on that ban list.
Well, I mean, this is a festival of hypocrisy all around on all of these issues. You play the hand that embarrasses the other side. I agree that the judicial issue is an important one. This is a way overstep on the part of the judiciary. But as to national security, completely unimportant. It's a sideshow.
Really quickly, just the moral of the story is that Democrats shouldn't do the kinds of things that they complained about for the last 8 years.